The HOA demolished my yacht. They brought in an excavator, tore it apart piece by piece until nothing but splinters and brass floated in the water. That boat wasn't just wood and varnish, it was the last piece of my late wife I had left. And they did it over unpaid HOA fees, in a neighborhood I don't even live in. Most mornings I drove my old Ford pickup down the gravel access road, coffee thermos in hand, the smell of pine and lake water drifting through the windows. My Marina was my peace. Slip 12 always gave me the best view, my boat Hannah's Kiss gleaming under the early sun. I'd spent 6 years restoring her after finding her rotting in a yard. Every plank I sanded felt like I was talking to Hannah again. That boat was our unfinished project, my therapy. So when I walked down that dock and saw a bright red laminated tag nailed to the piling, "Final notice from Lakeview Estates, HOA," I thought it was a bad joke. Unauthorized vessel delinquent fees, failure to display permit. Across the lake I could see their rows of beige cookie-cutter houses. A mile away. I never lived there, never paid dues, never signed their covenants. My Marina was zoned commercial. I owned it outright. I crumpled the notice, tossed it in the trash, and told myself it was just some rookie on the board with a map upside down. Still, to clear it up, I called the number. After a dozen robotic menus, I got a woman named Miriam, voice like broken glass, dripping fake patience. "Sir, our covenants extend to all lakefront properties. Your vessel is in violation." I almost laughed. I explained calmly this was private commercial land deed in my name. She shuffled some papers and said, "Mr. Hanley, we've sent you 3 warnings. You're delinquent. Furthermore, your old wooden boat is an eyesore. It's hurting property values." That word, eyesore. I'd bled on that wood, poured every ounce of grief into restoring her just to keep Hannah's memory alive. And this clipboard tyrant reduced it to an eyesore. I told her to send me proof my land fell under her HOA, otherwise stop harassing me. She chuckled. "You'll be hearing from us," and hung up. I wanted to believe she was just a bully making noise. A week later I signed for a certified letter. Inside was an $11,200 invoice. Unapproved color schemes, late fees stacked on late fees, failure to maintain modern appearance. And at the bottom, failure to pay will result in removal of the offending property. My stomach sank. They weren't bluffing. They wanted my wife's boat. I hired a lawyer. Sharp young guy, knew the property code backward. He sent them a blistering cease and desist, gave them 48 hours. Silence. He told me to sit tight, that they'd back off. For a week I tried to believe him. I worked in the garage, tinkered with an old engine, but every time I closed my eyes I saw that invoice and heard Miriam's voice calling Hannah's Kiss an eyesore. I couldn't take it anymore. I drove back to the Marina. Yellow caution tape was strung across the trees, police lights flashing. My boots hit the gravel and I ducked under the tape, ignoring the young cop who tried to stop me. "That's my Marina," I told him flatly. But when I reached slip 12, the water was empty. For a second I prayed they'd towed her, maybe impounded. Then I saw the debris. Mahogany shards bobbing in the waves, a brass nameplate half buried in mud, deep gouges in the earth from heavy machinery. They hadn't moved her. They'd obliterated her. I staggered, leaning on a piling to keep from collapsing. It was like someone ripped Hannah out of me a second time. Then Dale, my old neighbor, walked over pale. He handed me his phone. Shaky video of a yellow excavator slamming down again and again on the hull wood, splintering my boat, dying. And then Miriam's voice, sharp, smug. "Just finish the job." I wanted to scream. I marched to the senior officer, demanded charges for destruction of property, trespass, theft. He just shook his head, calm as stone. "This is a civil dispute, sir. Civil dispute." My wife's memory was floating in the lake, and they called it civil. I drove home, fury boiling under my grief. For a moment I wanted to give up. Sell the Marina, walk away, stop fighting battles I couldn't win. Maybe they were right. Maybe I was just an old man clinging to rotten wood. But then I opened my fireproof box, pulled out the deed. My name, my holding company, my Marina. They had demolished my boat on land they didn't own with a forged sense of power. My grief turned into something sharper, a methodical rage. I dug into county maps, zoning ordinances, property lines. The HOA's authority ended 100 feet from the shoreline. Their extended covenants were nothing but smoke. They had no jurisdiction over my marina. None. And yet they'd bulldozed my boat anyway. That's when I realized it wasn't just about me. Dale had paid thousands in bogus fines. The Clarks, an elderly couple, had their dock ripped out over a $250 fee they never owed. A young family was fined because their kayak was too bright. Miriam wasn't enforcing rules. She was running an extortion racket. I didn't file a lawsuit. Not yet. I cut their lifeline. At the next HOA meeting, I walked into their beige clubhouse, dropped a one-page document on Miriam's table, a revocation of their license to use the marina's footbridge. Effective immediately, their access was terminated. Her face flushed red as she sputtered, "You can't do this!" I looked her dead in the eye. I just did. That bridge had been their shortcut, their pride. Without it, they lost their venue for the annual summer party. Families who'd looked forward to fireworks were furious. The whispers started. People began to ask, what are we paying dues for if the board can't even secure a lawn? The dam cracked. Then the news crew came. I stood at my marina empty slip behind me and told the story. My wife's boat. The fines. The fabricated authority. The fraud. I didn't need to shout. The facts spoke for themselves. The 6 o'clock broadcast lit the fuse. The HOA scrambled, held an emergency forum. I sat in the second row with Dale the Clarks and the kayak family. Miriam started her speech about defending community standards and misinformation campaigns. I connected Dale's video to the projector. 10 feet tall on the wall, the excavator crushing Hannah's kiss. Miriam herself shouting, "Finish the job." The room gasped. Miriam shrieked about authority. Frank the enforcer puffed his chest, but I raised my hand and the room fell quiet. "I've served under real authority," I said, voice like steel. "Men who earned it through sacrifice. You don't qualify." Silence. And then, one by one, board members set down their badges and walked off stage. I resign. Another. And another. Miriam's kingdom collapsing in front of her neighbors. But she wasn't done. Cornered, she lashed out with restraining orders, police complaints painting herself the victim. My lawyer tracked down the subcontractor who demolished the boat. Nervous guy. He admitted Miriam had handed him a forged demolition permit. My lawyer took it to the county clerk. Confirmed fake. That changed everything. Forgery of a public document. Felony fraud. Detectives raided the clubhouse, caught Miriam and the treasurer feeding papers into a shredder. The next day, the news showed her being marched out in handcuffs, her face twisted in fury, Sandra sobbing behind her. The enforcer vanished. The mighty HOA exposed as criminals. That's where it ended. Their power gone, their board dissolved, their kingdom of beige and fines turned to rubble. My wife's boat was gone, but so was their tyranny. And if there's one thing I learned, it's this. Bullies don't fall when you yell at them. They fall when you show everyone the truth.